you ever felt.
It's the Rob's Rant Show
with your host, Rob Bell.
Are you listening? Damn. Yeah.
Missing girls in Washington, D.C., and nobody seems to care. Let's talk about that when I come back. Hi, I'm Rob Bell, your motivational speaker. I have over 35 years in the public speaking business. If you wish to book me for any of your events, go to robbellspeaks@gmail.com. I speak on such topics as working with at-risk youth, how to deal with community development, how to identify dangerous drugs and narcotics, how to act when you're stopped by police officers in the street, and a host of other topics. Please, if you wish to book me, again, go to robbellspeaks@gmail.com. You'll be glad you did. This is Rob Bell, and this is Rob's Rant. Missing girls in Washington, D.C., and nobody seems to care about this. Before I put anything on Rob's Rant, what I like to do is a little bit of research about the topics that I like to discuss. And prior to coming on and talking about this topic, I did a little bit of research on the internet. The first place I went to was the newspapers in Washington, D.C., the Washington Post, the Washington Times, the Washington Examiner, even the city paper in Washington, D.C. Nowhere did I find an article about the missing girls in Washington, D.C. I am an avid news junkie. I watch MSNBC. I watch CNN. I listen to CNN in my car as I'm traveling around in the city in Atlanta. And, you know, of late, especially the national news outlets, they got their behind stuck up Donald Trump's butt about the health care bill, which they should, I guess, to some degree, be able to inform us and, you know, getting us to understand that the bill wasn't going to pass. But there are other issues occurring, especially in our community, that to me, it seems as if they've totally neglected. The newspapers in Washington, D.C. have totally neglected this story. The only way I found out about the story was through social media. And it's a shame that a story of this magnitude is not being broadcasted throughout these United States. And particularly a story that's happening in our nation's capital, where all of the news outlets seem to constantly be because of Donald Trump. We have a serious situation here that nobody really even seems to care about. And in listening to some of the stories and reading some of the stories, it seems to me that there are some mixed messages being sent. As far as the Washington, D.C. Police Department is concerned, these young ladies are simply teenagers who are running away from home because of issues happening in the home, and in many cases, they are returning. And so it's kind of gave me the feeling that the police department in D.C. is kind of blowing this off as being your average, everyday, missing teenager that's having problems at home, and the media, what little media is covering this, is blowing this out of proportion. On the other side, there are people who are saying this is a real issue. You know, we have young African-American female teenagers who are being, said to be missing from their neighborhoods, and nobody is doing anything about it. Are they getting involved in human trafficking? Are they getting involved in prostitution? Or are people kidnapping them and making them get involved in sex acts? What's going on? We don't know what's going on because we rely on the national media and the mainstream media to provide us with our information. We don't do any research on our own to try to find out what's going on. Now, there was a huge meeting in Washington, D.C. a couple of days ago to try to get some answers, and the police department and other officials were sitting on the panel trying to provide those answers. And so how come that meeting wasn't covered by the news? How come we don't know a whole lot about that? We get a piece here and a piece there. You know, we got to do better. We got to do better. Nobody is marching about this. Nobody is protesting about this. When a white police officer kills a black man, oh, we get up in arms about that. Even to the degree to where we will riot because of the injustice. But when young African-American females go missing, everybody seems to kind of turn their back to that and play that off as, oh, it's just young teenagers running away from home, and in many cases they come back. That may not be the case. If it is, then it is. But it doesn't seem like it's the case now. What it seems to me is the police department is being a little negligent in how they're handling in this, and they don't want it to get out. They are kind of covering this whole thing up. They don't want to be looking like the department that's not doing anything about this. Why? Because this is happening in the African American community, and things that happen in our community are no big deal. They are of no consequence. I will guarantee you that if this was young white teenage females going missing, oh, this would have been a national news story. Trust and believe it would have been. And the reason why I say that is because with this recent epidemic of opioids and people dying of heroin overdoses and how that has moved into the suburbs now and it's becoming a quote unquote epidemic, oh, it became a national issue. Even to the degree where Washington is spilling out some money for programs to help people stop using heroin and get people involved in treatment facilities. What happened to that effort when there was a crack cocaine problem in the African American community? Where was the money from Washington to help people get into treatment programs for that? Where was the national attention for that other than showing drug dealers being shackled and locked up and going to jail, and showing crackheads and crackhead mothers having crackhead babies, and oh my God, these poor people. That's the kind of coverage that got. But now when the heroin epidemic hits the suburbs, it's an issue that has to warrant national attention. So I digress, and I go back to the fact that because this is young African American females, the nation can care less. And it seems like we, as African Americans, can care less. But we better start caring. I put a challenge on my Facebook page to say that all of my Facebook friends that frequent my page, my challenge is for you to post an article about the exploitation and missing African American young women in Washington post something about that, even your opinion on your page on a daily basis. That should garner some attention. And if you post it, share with your friends and make sure that they post it and make sure that their friends post it. At least on social media, we should be showing an effort that we are trying to get this information out to our community. And maybe, just maybe, if we blast it enough and the national media can get their behinds out of Donald Trump's behind with him and the Russians and his compadres, maybe we can get some national attention on this news and put some pressure on the police department in Washington, D.C. to dig a little deeper to find out what the hell is going on with this. Because this is ridiculous. We cannot continue to just sit back and let people step on us and treat us like crap without us doing nothing about it. Step up to the plate and do something. This is Rob Bell, and this is Rob's Rant.
Are you listening? Damn. Yeah. Yeah.